My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now let me take you right into the most shocking part of my story. It was a Saturday evening. My husband, George, and I had just returned from shopping. I was carrying the groceries into the kitchen when he went to park the car properly in the garage. Later that night, I went back into the car to grab my reading glasses that I had forgotten under the seat. That's when I saw it, shiny and small, half hidden under the seat. A tube of lubricant. My heart sank instantly. My husband and I had been married for over 40 years, and not once had I seen such a thing in our home, let alone his car. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. I didn't say a word. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. I simply placed it back. But not without a plan. The next morning, while George was out mowing the lawn, I quietly swapped the contents of that tube with industrial glue that I found in the tool cabinet. I slid it back under the seat, exactly where I found it. I thought I would have time to prepare myself. I thought maybe he wouldn't even notice. But I was wrong. That same evening, I heard George rush into the bathroom, locking the door behind him. Minutes later, loud banging, groans of pain, and terrifying screams filled the house. I froze, my heart thundering. Then I heard him cry out so loudly that the neighbors came knocking on the door. By the time I opened it, George's screams had turned so desperate that someone had already called an ambulance. And when the paramedics arrived and broke into the bathroom, what they found made even them gasp in horror. I stood at the doorway, my knees shaking, as the truth of what I had done stared me right in the face. My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. Now let's go back to where it all began. Long before the screams and the ambulance lights. I met George when I was just 19. He was tall, charming, and had a way of making a girl feel like the most important person in the world. We married quickly, and for years, our life seemed like a dream. We had 2 children, a cozy home, and what most people would call the perfect marriage. But what people didn't see was the slow cracks forming beneath the surface. George was never a faithful man. At first, I ignored the little signs. The late nights at work, the sudden business trips, the faint smell of perfume that wasn't mine. I told myself it was all in my head, that he loved me too much to betray me. But deep down I knew. As the years went by, those cracks widened. George became careless, leaving hints behind as if daring me to find them. A lipstick mark on his shirt, a hotel receipt in his pocket. I would cry quietly in my room while he slept soundly beside me. My children grew up watching me swallow my pain with a smile. By the time we became grandparents, I thought I had grown numb. I thought nothing he did could shock me anymore. But then came that day, the day we returned from shopping, and I found that tube of lubricant under his seat. It was different this time. It wasn't just another clue. It was a slap in the face, proof that even at his age, George hadn't changed. He still couldn't respect the woman who stood by him through sickness, poverty, and storms. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want to fight. I wanted him to feel a pain so sharp that he would never forget. That's why I replaced it with glue. But as I stood in the kitchen later that night, listening to the sirens approach, I started to wonder if I had gone too far. I could hear George's agonized cries mixing with the flashing lights outside. Neighbors gathered, whispering, pointing, calling out my name. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, one of the paramedics rushed toward me and said, "Ma'am, you need to come with us. Your husband's condition, it's critical." My heart dropped into my stomach. My plan had worked too well. My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. The flashing red and blue lights from the ambulance painted the walls of our house, as George was carried out on a stretcher. His face was twisted in unbearable pain, sweat pouring down his forehead, his voice hoarse from screaming. I followed behind, my legs barely carrying me. The neighbors watched silently, some whispering, others shaking their heads. The ride to the hospital felt endless. My hands trembled in my lap as guilt and fear battled in my chest. I kept replaying the moment I swapped the lubricant with glue. At the time, it had felt justified, a punishment, a way to make him face the consequences of his betrayals. But now, seeing him like this, I wasn't sure anymore. When we arrived, doctors rushed him inside. I sat alone in the waiting area, staring at the sterile white walls. Hours seemed to pass before a stern-looking nurse approached me. "Are you his wife?" she asked. "Yes," I whispered. She nodded, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "The police will want to ask you some questions. His injuries are unusual." My heart stopped. The police? Sure enough, minutes later, 2 officers walked in. One was tall and broad-shouldered, the other shorter with sharp eyes that seemed to see right through me. They sat across from me, notebooks ready. "Mrs. Margaret," the taller one began, "your husband is in critical condition. Can you tell us what happened tonight?" I swallowed hard, my palms sweaty. He went into the bathroom. Then I heard him screaming. That's all I know." The shorter officer leaned forward. "We found traces of industrial adhesive. Do you know anything about that?" My heart hammered in my chest. This was the moment. Should I lie? Should I confess? If I confessed, would they arrest me right there in the hospital? If I lied, would they find out anyway? Before I could decide, the doctor suddenly entered the waiting room. His face was grim. "Mrs. Margaret," he said, his voice heavy, "your husband barely made it through surgery. He's alive, but the damage is severe." I gasped, covering my mouth with my hand. The officers exchanged a quick glance. And then the doctor added words that made my blood run cold. "We need to know exactly what he used before this happened. His life could still depend on it." All eyes turned to me. My secret sat on the tip of my tongue. If I spoke, I could save him, but I could also destroy myself. I took a shaky breath, the walls closing in around me. "My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know." The waiting room fell silent after the doctor's words. My heart pounded in my ears. The 2 officers leaned closer, watching my every move. And the doctor's eyes begged for an answer. George's life was hanging by a thread, and the truth was buried inside me. I clenched my hands together. If I spoke, I could save him, but they'd know I was the one who swapped the tube. If I stayed silent, George might die, and I would carry that guilt forever. Finally, I opened my mouth, my voice trembling. It wasn't lubricant. The doctor leaned forward quickly. "What was it then?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. "Industrial glue. I found the tube in his car. I thought he was cheating again." The doctor's eyes widened in shock, but he didn't waste a second. "That explains it. Thank you. This may change how we proceed with treatment." He rushed back toward the operating room, leaving me trembling in my seat. The officers, however, did not leave. The taller one scribbled something in his notebook, while the shorter one stared at me with a sharp, unreadable gaze. "So," the shorter officer said slowly, "you admit to tampering with the tube?" I lowered my head. "Yes, but I didn't mean to. I just wanted to teach him a lesson. I didn't think it would go this far." The taller officer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Margaret, this is serious. Depending on how this turns out, you could be facing charge." My stomach twisted. 40 years of marriage, raising children, sacrificing my own dreams. All of it could end with me in handcuffs. Just then my daughter, Lisa, rushed into the hospital, her face pale with worry. "Mom, what happened? I heard Dad's in surgery." I froze. How could I tell my daughter that I was the reason her father lay on that hospital bed? The officers stood back for a moment, giving me space. Lisa grabbed my hands, her eyes searching mine. "Mom, tell me the truth. What happened to Dad?" My lips trembled. Tears stung my eyes. Sweetheart, it was me. I did something I shouldn't have. Her face twisted in disbelief. You? What do you mean? Before I could answer, the doors to the operating room swung open again. The doctor returned, his face even grimmer than before. He made it through the procedure, the doctor said. But there are complications. We're not sure if he'll recover fully. The air in the room grew heavy. My daughter gasped. The officers' pens hovered over their notepads. And I felt the weight of my choices pressing down on me like never before. And then the doctor said something that made my blood turn cold. We need to speak privately, Mrs. Margaret. There's something unusual we found during the surgery. Something you need to hear. My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. The doctor motioned for me to follow him into a small consultation room. My legs felt heavy as I walked in, my daughter and the officers trailing behind. He shut the door and turned toward us, his expression a mixture of disbelief and discomfort. Mrs. Margaret, he began, adjusting his glasses. During the procedure, we discovered injuries that didn't come from the glue alone. Your husband's body shows signs of repeated activity, things that don't match a man of his age or his claimed health problems. I frowned, my confusion mixing with dread. What do you mean? The doctor sighed. I mean, the lubricant wasn't for you, was it? The room went completely silent. My daughter's eyes widened, the officers shifted uncomfortably, and I felt my chest tighten. I shook my head slowly. I don't understand. The doctor's gaze softened. Mrs. Margaret, your husband's condition suggests he's been living a double life. This wasn't a one-time mistake. The words crashed over me like waves. My suspicions, the late nights, the strange phone calls, all of it suddenly made sense. George hadn't just been unfaithful. He'd been living another life altogether. Lisa gasped, covering her mouth. Dad? No, it can't be. Tears stung my eyes, but at the same time, anger boiled inside me. All the years I had stayed, all the sacrifices I had made, and now I stood in a hospital, learning that the man I thought I knew had been betraying me in ways I couldn't even imagine. The officers exchanged a glance. The shorter one cleared his throat. Mrs. Margaret, this doesn't change the fact that tampering with that tube nearly killed him. But given what we've just heard, I have to ask, did you know about his double life before tonight? I looked down at my trembling hands. No. I only suspected. But I didn't know. Not until now. Lisa burst into tears, her voice cracking. Mom, what do we do? He's my father, but how can we ever look at him the same? Before I could answer, the intercom buzzed overhead. A nurse's urgent voice echoed through the halls. Code Blue in Operating Room 3. Code Blue. The doctor's face went pale. That's your husband. He rushed out of the room, leaving us frozen in shock. I stumbled toward the door, my daughter clinging to my arm. The officers followed behind, their notebooks forgotten. We reached the operating room window just as the doctors inside began frantic CPR. George's body jolted under the paddles, his chest rising and falling with each desperate attempt to bring him back. My knees buckled. My daughter screamed. And then one long, piercing flatline filled the air. My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. The sound of that flatline ripped through me like a blade. My daughter's cries echoed in the sterile hallway as we pressed against the glass window, watching doctors swarm around George's body. Charge again! One of them shouted. The defibrillator paddles pressed down on his chest. His body jerked violently, but the monitor remained flat. For a moment, it felt like the world had stopped. The officers stood silent, the nurses rushed back and forth, and I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then suddenly, beep, beep, beep. The sound of life. His heart was beating again. Weak, fragile, but there. The doctor stepped out a few minutes later, wiping sweat from his brow. "He's back," he said firmly. "But I won't sugarcoat it. He's in a coma now. We don't know if he'll ever wake up." Lisa collapsed into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I held her tight, but inside I was shaking. The man I had spent my whole life with, the man I thought I knew, was now lying between life and death. And it was partly my fault. The officers pulled me aside quietly. The shorter one spoke. "Mrs. Margaret, the hospital staff confirmed your confession. Because of the severity of your husband's condition, we'll need to file a report. You may be facing criminal charges." His words struck me like lightning. My knees nearly gave out. Lisa overheard and turned to me, her tear-stained face filled with shock. "Mom, charges? What did you do?" I couldn't look her in the eyes. My voice cracked. "Sweetheart, I replaced what I found in the car. I didn't want to hurt him this bad, I swear. I just wanted him to feel what I've been feeling all these years." Lisa gasped, covering her mouth, unable to speak. The officers handed me a slip of paper. "You'll need to come down to the station tomorrow to give a full statement. For now, stay close. We may have more questions." As they walked away, I sank into a chair, burying my face in my hands. My daughter stood across from me, staring as if I had become a stranger. And just when I thought the night couldn't get any worse, a nurse came running down the hall with a clipboard in her hands. "Mrs. Margaret, you need to see this. It's about your husband's medical records." I looked up slowly, dread creeping into my chest. "What about them?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The nurse hesitated, then handed me the papers. "There are names listed here. People he authorized for medical access. None of them are family. And one of them has been visiting him regularly when you weren't around." My breath caught in my throat. My daughter's eyes widened. Who were these people? And what secret life had George really been living behind my back? "My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know." My hands trembled as I held the clipboard. The names blurred before my eyes. They weren't family. They weren't friends I knew. And one name was circled, as if someone at the hospital had marked it for attention. "Anthony Reed." I whispered aloud. Lisa frowned. "Who's Anthony Reed?" I shook my head, my voice trembling. I don't know." The nurse leaned closer. "Mrs. Margaret, this man has visited your husband 3 times in the past month. Always when you weren't here. He signed in at the front desk as George's emergency contact." My stomach dropped. Emergency contact? George hadn't even listed me as that. Lisa's voice cracked. So Dad trusted this Anthony person more than his own wife and children? The betrayal sliced through me like glass. 40 years of standing by him, forgiving his betrayals, carrying his burdens. And yet, in his darkest hour, he had chosen a stranger over me. The officers returned just then, noticing the paper in my hand. The shorter one squinted at the name. "Anthony Reed? That's not a name we've come across yet. Do you know if he's related to your husband in some way?" I swallowed hard. "No. Not that I know of." Lisa stepped forward, her fists clenched. "Then who is he? Why would Dad trust him more than us?" Before anyone could answer, my phone buzzed in my purse. My hands shook as I pulled it out. The message on the screen made my blood freeze. It was from an unknown number. "Stay out of this, Margaret. George's secrets are bigger than you think. If you push too far, you'll regret it." My fingers went numb, and the phone nearly slipped from my hand. I looked at the officers, my face pale. Someone knows what's happening. They're warning me." Lisa gasped, grabbing the phone from my hand to read the message. The officers exchanged sharp looks and immediately wrote it down. The taller one muttered, "This isn't just about a domestic dispute anymore. There's more to your husband's life than what you've told us." I could barely breathe. My husband was in a coma, the police were circling me, my daughter looked at me like she didn't recognize me, and now strangers were threatening me to stay silent. And the worst part? Deep down, I knew this wasn't over. That night, as I sat alone in the hospital room beside George's lifeless body, I whispered into the silence, "What have you done, George? What were you hiding from me?" At that moment, George's finger twitched ever so slightly. My breath caught in my throat. "My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know." The hospital room was dimly lit, machines beeping steadily, keeping rhythm with George's shallow breaths. I had been sitting in that chair for hours, my mind racing, when I saw it, his finger twitching. I froze, staring at his hand. At first, I thought I had imagined it. But then his eyelids fluttered, just for a moment. My heart leapt into my throat. "George? Can you hear me?" He didn't answer, but the machines picked up a slight change in his heart rate. My voice shook as I leaned closer. "It's me, Margaret. If you can hear me, please give me a sign." His lips moved ever so slightly, though no sound came out. I grabbed his hand, squeezing tightly. "George, you need to hold on. There are things I need to know. About Anthony. About everything. Please tell me the truth." The door suddenly opened, and a nurse entered. "Mrs. Margaret, what's going on?" "He moved," I exclaimed, pointing to him. His hand, his lips, they moved. The nurse rushed to his side, checking his vitals. She gave me a cautious look. Sometimes coma patients make small movements. It doesn't always mean they're waking up. But I wasn't convinced. That wasn't just a twitch. He had been trying to tell me something. Lisa arrived shortly after, her eyes still red from crying. When I told her what I saw, she bit her lip. "If Dad wakes up, Mom, what if he doesn't forgive you for what you did?" Her words pierced me. I hadn't even thought about that. Would he wake up angry? Would he hate me? Or worse, would he expose secrets that could ruin us all? Later that night, I dozed off in the chair beside him. I was jolted awake by a sound. George's voice, low and raspy, barely audible. Margaret." I shot up, my heart pounding. His eyes were half open now, looking straight at me. "George," I cried, leaning closer. "I'm here. Please tell me the truth. Who is Anthony Reed? Why did you hide him from us?" His lips quivered, and he whispered something so faint I could barely hear. "Anthony is my son," I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth. My legs felt weak. A son? A secret child he had never told me about? Before I could say another word, the monitors began beeping wildly. George's eyes rolled back, and the machines blared alarms. Nurses and doctors rushed in, pushing me aside. I stumbled backward, my heart shattering, as they fought once again to save him. "My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know." The sound of the alarms filled the room. Nurses shouted orders, the doctor worked frantically, and I stood frozen against the wall, my heart pounding in my chest. His last words echoed in my ears. "Anthony is my son." Tears blurred my vision. 40 years of marriage, and he had hidden something this big from me? Another child? Another life? The machines finally steadied again. The doctor turned to me with a grim expression. "We stabilized him. But he's too weak to speak again for now. If he does wake up, it may only be for moments at a time." Lisa clutched my arm, her face pale with shock. "Mom, what did he say to you?" I saw his lips moving. "What did he tell you?" My throat closed up. I wanted to protect her, but she deserved the truth. My voice cracked as I whispered. "He said, Anthony is his son." Lisa staggered back as if I had slapped her. "What? No. That can't be true. I'm his daughter. I thought I was his only child." I reached out for her, but she pulled away, her eyes full of tears and anger. "So all these years, he was lying to us? To me? To you? He had another family and we never knew." I shook my head, sobbing. "I didn't know either, Lisa. Not until tonight. The officers, who had been standing in the corner, stepped forward. The shorter one's eyes narrowed. This Anthony Reed. If he's really George's son, then everything changes. We'll need to question him. Lisa's voice rose, trembling with fury. So Dad betrayed us. You nearly killed him. And now we're supposed to accept that some stranger is my half-brother. Her words cut deep. My chest ached. My daughter looked at me not with love, but with disappointment and rage. Just then the nurse returned, holding another folder. Mrs. Margaret, there's something else. We checked George's insurance forms and legal documents. Anthony isn't just listed as his son, he's listed as the primary beneficiary. The room spun around me. My hands went cold. George hadn't just hidden a son. He had given everything I thought we built together, to him. Lisa gasped in horror. He left us with nothing? He gave it all to Anthony. The officers scribbled furiously. The nurse backed away, and I stood there trembling. And then my phone buzzed again. Another message from that same unknown number. Now you know the truth. Stop digging, Margaret, or you'll be next. My stomach dropped. My daughter grabbed my hand, her eyes wide with fear. Mom, what's happening to us? My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old. And I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. When I read that text, my knees nearly buckled. The walls of the hospital seemed to close in on me. Someone out there knew what I had just learned, and they were watching me closely enough to send that message at the very moment the nurse revealed George's documents. Lisa squeezed my hand so tightly it hurt. Her eyes darted around the room, fear written all over her face. Mom, this isn't just about Dad anymore. Whoever sent that, they know too much. We're in danger. The officers took the phone from me and examined it. This is serious, one of them said. We'll track the number, but if what your husband said is true, this Anthony might know more than he's admitting. I leaned against the wall, my mind racing. I remembered the way Anthony had appeared at the hospital the night George collapsed. The way his face had flickered with something cold, almost smug, when he saw me struggling with the truth. Had George been protecting him all these years? Or protecting me from him? Lisa's voice cracked. Mom, do you think Dad loved Anthony more than us? Her question stabbed me. I had no answer. All I knew was that my family, everything I thought I knew about my marriage, was breaking apart before my eyes. The officers left briefly to make calls. Lisa sat down, her hands covering her face. I stared at George through the glass window of the ICU, wondering if he would wake up again to explain himself, or if he would die with all his secrets locked inside. Hours passed and I couldn't close my eyes. When dawn broke, I finally stepped outside the hospital to get air. The cold breeze touched my face, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I let myself breathe. But then I saw him. Anthony. He was standing by a black car at the edge of the parking lot, staring at me. Not smiling, not speaking, just staring. His arms were crossed, his posture stiff, and his eyes, those eyes, looked exactly like George's. Fear and rage collided in me. I walked toward him, my heart thundering in my chest. What do you want from us? I demanded. He tilted his head slightly, almost mocking. It's not about what I want. It's about what's already mine. Dad made his choice a long time ago. You just never knew. I trembled. If you're really his son, then why now? Why show up when he's at death's door? He leaned closer, his voice low and sharp. Because now no one can stop me. Before I could answer, a loud crash echoed behind us. A window shattered from the ICU wing. Nurses screamed. I spun around in horror, just in time to see George's monitors going dark. My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. The crash of the ICU window still echoed in my ears as I ran back inside. my legs trembling beneath me. Nurses were rushing in and out, their voices panicked, their hands struggling with wires and machines. George lay motionless on the bed. His chest wasn't rising, his face had turned gray, and the monitors displayed only flat lines. No, 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 no. I screamed, pushing past the doctors. You can't take him from me now. Not like this. Lisa was already at his side, sobbing uncontrollably. Dad, please. Don't leave us. Please wake up. The doctor tried compressions, his face grave, his hands pressing down rhythmically on George's chest. Minutes dragged like hours, the sound of the defibrillator charging filling the room. Clear, he shouted, and George's body jolted violently as electricity surged through him. Once, twice, 3 times. But the monitor didn't change. The line stayed flat. Tears blurred my vision as the doctor lowered his head. I'm sorry. We did everything we could. Lisa screamed, clutching George's lifeless hand. My knees gave out, and I collapsed to the floor, my cries echoing against the sterile hospital walls. But then, from the hallway, a slow clap echoed. I turned my head, stunned, and there he was. Anthony. Standing just outside the glass wall of the ICU. His hands coming together in a deliberate, chilling applause. His expression was cold, his lips curled into a faint smirk. My blood froze. Lisa saw him too, her face twisting with fury. What did you do? She shouted. Anthony didn't answer. He just lifted his phone slowly, holding it up so we could see the glowing screen. A message was written across it in bold letters. Game over. Now it's my turn. Before anyone could react, he slipped the phone back into his pocket, turned, and walked away down the corridor as if he owned the world. The officers who had been guarding outside came running, but by the time they reached the hallway, Anthony was gone. Lisa's grief turned into rage. She grabbed my shoulders, shaking me. Mom, he killed Dad. He knew. He planned this all along. But I couldn't even speak. My husband, my partner for 40 years, was gone. And the man who might have been his hidden son had just declared war on us in the coldest way possible. And deep inside me, a chilling realization grew stronger. If Anthony was ruthless enough to stand there and mock us as George's life slipped away, then maybe I was next. My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. The day George died, the world around me collapsed like a house of cards. My heart felt hollow, my chest burned, and my mind could not accept the reality staring me in the face. For 40 years, I built my life around this man. Through struggles, joys, betrayals, and forgiveness, we remained tethered together like 2 trees whose roots had long since intertwined. But now, as his lifeless body lay on that sterile hospital bed, I realized how much of him I had never truly known. Lisa clung to me, sobbing so violently that her shoulders shook. The sound of her grief cut deeper than knives. Mom, what do we do now? He's gone, he's really gone. I wrapped my arms around her, though my own strength was failing me. We survive, Lisa. That's all we can do now. We survive. But my words sounded empty even to my own ears. Because as much as grief swallowed me, a new enemy had emerged. One with George's blood running in his veins. Anthony. The way he had stood outside that glass, clapping as George slipped away, would haunt me forever. His smugness. His message. His timing. He wasn't just a secret son. He was a shadow creeping closer every second, threatening to engulf me and my daughter. The police scoured the hospital after his disappearance, but Anthony had vanished as if swallowed by the earth itself. The black car I had seen him with earlier in the parking lot was gone too. By evening, they gave me their hollow assurances. We'll track him. We'll put out a notice. He can't hide forever, one officer promised. But I didn't believe him. Anthony had already proven he was steps ahead. He had the kind of cunning you can't teach, and the kind of ruthlessness that grows from resentment and bitterness left to rot for years. When Lisa and I returned home that night, the house felt alien. The couch where George always sat, the chair at the dinner table where he used to read the paper, even the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the air. It all stabbed at me with painful reminders. But grief wasn't the only thing filling the house. Fear crept in too. That night, as I walked past the front door, I noticed something odd. The welcome mat had been shifted, pushed slightly to the side. My stomach tightened. I bent down and lifted it. A small piece of folded paper sat underneath. With shaking hands, I opened it. Inside, scrawled in sharp, uneven handwriting were the words, "He gave you everything, and you never deserved it. Now I'll take it all back." I gasped and dropped the note as if it burned my fingers. Lisa rushed over. "Mom, what is it?" I pointed at the paper, my voice trembling. "He was here, Lisa. Anthony was here." Her face went pale. She grabbed the note, read it, then hurled it across the room. "We need the police. Right now." And so once again the officers came. They bagged the note, questioned the neighbors, and checked the house for signs of forced entry. Nothing. No fingerprints. No footprints. No witnesses. It was as if Anthony wanted us to know he could get close whenever he wanted. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the house made me jump. Every shadow outside the window made me wonder if he was watching. Lisa dozed off in the guest room clutching a baseball bat, while I sat in my bedroom, staring at George's picture and whispering, "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you leave me to face this alone?" The following days blurred together in grief and paranoia. I had to plan George's funeral, meet with lawyers about his estate, and sit through endless police questions. Each meeting brought fresh heartbreak. The lawyer confirmed what the nurse had already told me. George's will named Anthony as the primary beneficiary. The house, the savings, the car, everything. Lisa's jaw clenched when she heard it. "So we're nothing to him? We're just garbage." I gripped her hand. "We still have each other. That's what matters now." But in truth, I felt betrayed, abandoned, and humiliated. At the funeral, whispers filled the air. Old friends and distant relatives murmured behind their hands, their eyes flicking toward me with pity or judgment. I heard fragments. "Another son. Strange boy appeared at the hospital." Did she know? But the worst moment came when I caught sight of Anthony standing at the back of the church. He didn't approach. He didn't speak. He just stood there, his eyes locked on me. A smirk played on his lips as if this funeral was his victory parade. I froze in place, clutching Lisa's arm. She followed my gaze, and her face twisted in rage. "I'll kill him," she hissed. "No," I whispered. "That's what he wants. Stay calm." But deep inside, I knew something dark. Anthony wasn't just here to mourn. He was here to send a message. He wanted me to see him. He wanted me to know he wasn't going anywhere. And he was right. Because after the funeral, the attacks escalated. First, it was small things. The tires on my car slashed in the driveway. Anonymous phone calls with nothing but silence on the other end. Lisa's laptop hacked, her files erased. Then it grew bolder. One night, I heard footsteps outside my bedroom window. When I pulled back the curtain, I saw the faint outline of a man standing in the yard, staring up at me. I screamed, and Lisa came running, but by the time she reached the window, he was gone. The police did little. "Could be pranksters," one officer shrugged. "We'll patrol the neighborhood more often." But I knew better. It was Anthony. Every incident chipped away at my sanity. I started locking every door twice, checking windows, keeping lights on all night. Lisa and I lived in constant fear, our nerves stretched thinner each day. Yet amidst all this chaos, something strange began to stir inside me. I felt anger. Not just at Anthony, but at George. He had left me this nightmare. He had hidden the truth. He had chosen secrecy over honesty, and now I was paying the price. And in my darkest hours, staring at that folded note he left under the mat, I whispered to myself, "If he wants war, I'll give him war." But the war came faster than I expected. One night, about 2 weeks after the funeral, Lisa and I returned home from the grocery store. As I unlocked the front door, I noticed it again. Something was off. The door frame was splintered, just barely. I froze. "Lisa, don't move." She frowned. "What is it?" I pointed to the crack in the frame. "Someone's been inside." Her face went pale. Oh my God. Slowly, I pushed the door open. The living room lights were already on. My heart pounded as we stepped inside. The TV was gone. The drawers were pulled open. Cushions were slashed. But it wasn't a robbery. Because on the wall, scrawled in thick red paint, were the words, "You can't hide from blood." Lisa gasped, clapping her hands over her mouth. Mom, it's him. It has to be him. I staggered backward, my knees weak. Rage, fear, grief. All of it boiled inside me until I could barely breathe. And then we heard it. A creak upstairs. Lisa's eyes widened. He's here. My blood ran cold. We weren't alone. My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. The sound of that creak from upstairs nearly stopped my heart. Lisa and I stood frozen in the middle of our ruined living room, staring at each other with wide, terrified eyes. My daughter's lips trembled as she mouthed, "He's here." For a moment, the house was so quiet I could hear the pounding of my own heartbeat in my ears. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Then another creak. This one heavier. Deliberate. I grabbed Lisa's hand and whispered, "Stay behind me." My voice shook, but I forced myself to sound strong for her sake. We moved slowly toward the stairs. The air in the house felt thick, suffocating, as if even the walls were holding their breath. With each step, the tension grew tighter, like a rope pulling at my chest. Halfway up, I heard a voice. Low, calm, mocking. "Going somewhere, mother?" Lisa gasped. I froze mid-step. He was at the top of the stairs. Anthony. His tall frame blocked the hallway light, his eyes gleaming like shadows with fire in them. In his hand, he held George's old wristwatch, the one I thought had been buried with him. He dangled it casually, as if taunting me. "Put that down," I demanded, though my voice wavered. He smiled faintly. He gave it to me years ago. You thought you knew him, didn't you? But he was mine before he was yours." Lisa's rage boiled over. "You're a liar. You ruined our family and you killed him." Anthony tilted his head. "Killed him? No. I didn't kill him. He killed himself. With his secrets, with his choices. I'm just finishing what he started." I clenched my fists, stepping forward. "You don't belong here, Anthony. You had your say at the funeral. Now leave us alone." His smirk deepened. "Leave? Oh no, Margaret. This house, his estate, his name. It's all mine. You and your spoiled daughter are just squatters in my inheritance." Lisa lunged forward, fury overtaking fear, but I held her back. "Don't," I hissed. "That's what he wants." Anthony chuckled darkly. "Smart woman. But smart won't save you tonight." Before I could process his words, he tossed the watch at me. Instinctively, I caught it. The cold metal stung my palm. And then he charged. The force of his movement knocked me backward. Lisa screamed. We tumbled against the banister, struggling as his hands clawed for my throat. His strength was terrifying, fueled by years of hatred and entitlement. "Everything was supposed to be mine," he growled. "He promised me." My lungs burned as his grip tightened. Stars danced in my vision. Desperately, I raised the watch still clutched in my hand and smashed it against his temple. He howled in pain and loosened his grip. I shoved him back with all the strength I had left. Lisa swung the baseball bat she'd carried from the guest room earlier, striking his shoulder with a sickening crack. Anthony staggered but didn't fall. His face twisted with rage. "You'll regret that," he roared. We bolted down the stairs, my legs barely holding me upright. Lisa fumbled with her phone, calling 911. Behind us, Anthony thundered down the steps like a predator chasing prey. We reached the front door just as he caught up. His hand grabbed my arm, yanking me back. Pain shot through my shoulder. But at that moment, the red and blue lights of police cruisers flashed through the window. Anthony froze. His grip loosened, his eyes flicking toward the growing sound of sirens. For the first time, I saw something flicker across his face. Not anger. Not arrogance. Fear. He let go and bolted toward the back of the house. Officers stormed in seconds later, guns drawn, shouting commands. Lisa screamed, pointing. He went that way. Chaos erupted. Flashlights, boots pounding, officers chasing through the darkened backyard. I collapsed against the wall, gasping for air, clutching the watch so tightly it cut into my skin. Minutes stretched like hours, but finally, one officer returned. His face was grim. He's gone. We'll keep searching, but he slipped away into the woods. Lisa sank to her knees, sobbing. I felt hollow, trembling with both relief and dread. Anthony was out there. He had come into our home, touched our lives, and nearly taken everything from us. And he wasn't finished. As the officers secured the house, I stared down at George's broken watch in my hand. The glass was cracked, the hands frozen in place. It felt symbolic somehow. Time had stopped. The life I thought I knew was gone. What remained was a fight for survival. I looked at Lisa, her tear-streaked face pressed into my shoulder. And I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't the end. Anthony would be back. And next time, I had to be ready. To be concluded. My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss any of my upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. After Anthony broke into our home, I realized the truth I had been trying to deny. We weren't safe anymore. The locks on the doors, the alarms on the windows, even the police patrols circling the neighborhood at night. None of it was enough. Anthony had made it clear he could come and go as he pleased. He was inside our lives, inside our minds, and inside our fears. That night, after the officers left, Lisa and I sat on the living room floor surrounded by broken glass, slashed cushions, and the mocking red words Anthony had left on our wall. You can't hide from blood. Lisa hugged her knees, her eyes swollen from crying. Mom, she whispered. We can't stay here. He'll come back. I can feel it. Her voice trembled, but her fear mirrored my own. Every sound outside made me jump. Every shadow stretching across the blinds made my pulse quicken. Anthony wasn't just threatening us. He was dismantling us piece by piece, breaking our sanity. But running wasn't an option. This was my home. My life. And most of all, this was the battlefield George had left behind. No, Lisa, I said firmly, though my chest quivered. We're not running. He wants to scare us into giving up. But I refused to let him win. Her eyes flashed with anger. Then what do we do? Wait until he kills us too. I couldn't answer. Not yet. The next morning, I went to the police station. I demanded to speak directly with Detective Harris, the one assigned to George's case. He was a tall man with graying hair and tired eyes, the kind of officer who had seen too much in his lifetime. Mrs. Margaret, he said, leaning forward across his cluttered desk. I understand your fear, but without hard evidence, there's only so much we can do. Anthony hasn't been formally charged. Legally, his father named him beneficiary. Right now, he hasn't broken a law strong enough to hold him. My fists tightened in my lap. He broke into my house. He threatened me. He nearly strangled me with his bare hands. What more do you need? Harris sighed heavily. We can assign more patrols. We'll put a bolo out for him again. But men like Anthony, they know how to slip through cracks. If you want my advice, stay cautious. Don't confront him directly. Stay cautious. Don't confront him. But how could I not confront the man who had torn my life apart? On the drive home, I stared out at the Florida streets. Bright palm trees, children on bicycles, people sipping iced coffee outside little cafes. The world kept turning, oblivious to the storm brewing inside my life. When I pulled into the driveway, Lisa rushed out of the house, her face pale. Mom, come quick. My heart lurched. What is it? She dragged me inside, pointing to the kitchen table. A small black box sat there, neatly tied with a red ribbon. I found it on the porch, she whispered. No note. No knock. Just sitting there. The sight of it chilled me. Slowly, I untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside was a single object. George's wedding ring. The one buried with him. Lisa screamed and backed away, her hand covering her mouth. I stared at the ring, my blood turning to ice. It was impossible. Unless Anthony had dug it up. I slammed the box shut, my hands trembling. He's taunting us. He's showing us he can desecrate even the dead to prove his power. Lisa's tears streamed down her face. Mom, this is evil. He's not human. I called Detective Harris immediately, and within the hour, officers swarmed our house again, photographing the box, dusting it for prints. But I already knew the outcome. No prints. No leads. Just Anthony's ghostly presence haunting us, closer every day. That night, I sat awake in the dark living room, George's ring lying on the table in front of me. I thought about our life together. All the moments I had believed we were building something strong, only to learn he had built shadows behind my back. And I thought about Anthony, this twisted, broken man who carried George's blood but none of his love. I realized then, if I didn't fight back, Anthony would destroy us. The police couldn't stop him. The law couldn't stop him. I had to. The very next day, I began preparing. I changed every lock. I installed motion sensors around the yard. I bought a second baseball bat and placed it under my bed. And I started keeping a journal. Every message, every note, every threat Anthony left if he wanted war. Then I would document every battle until either he was stopped, or I was. For a week, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Lisa almost began to believe he had gone. She laughed again, watched TV again, even slept without the bat next to her. But I knew better. The quiet wasn't peace. It was the calm before the storm. And then the storm arrived. One night, just after midnight, the motion sensor lights outside flicked on. I rushed to the window, my heart pounding. In the yard stood Anthony. Not hiding. Not running. Just standing there in the cold glow of the light, his face calm, his hands in his pockets. When he saw me at the window, he raised his hand and pointed directly at me. Then slowly he drew his finger across his throat. Lisa came running behind me, gasping. He's back. Oh God, Mom, he's back. I grabbed my phone and called the police, but by the time the cruisers arrived, Anthony was gone. Again. Only this time, he left something behind. Taped to the front door was a photograph. It was a picture of Lisa, taken that very afternoon while she was walking to the grocery store. My blood ran cold. He wasn't just after me. He was after my daughter. Lisa burst into tears, clutching me. Mom, he's going to kill me. I hugged her tightly, though my own body shook. No. I won't let him. He wants to scare us. But we won't let him win. But even as I said the words, I knew the truth. Anthony wasn't going to stop. He was getting closer. And the next time, he wouldn't just leave a message. He would strike. My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old, and I am speaking to you from Florida, USA. Before I tell you how this story ends, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss my upcoming stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know. When I saw the photograph of Lisa taped to the door, I knew Anthony's game had reached its final stage. This was no longer about torment or inheritance. He had made it personal. He wanted blood. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lisa lay trembling in her room, whispering prayers through her tears. I sat awake with the baseball bat in my lap, my eyes fixed on the front door. Every creak, every gust of wind against the windows made my body tense. By dawn, my mind was made up. We couldn't wait for Anthony to strike. We had to end this on our terms. I told Lisa my plan. Her face went pale as I explained. No, Mom, it's too dangerous, she said, clutching my hands. If you go after him, he'll kill you. I shook my head. If I don't, he'll kill you. He's obsessed with punishing George's bloodline. That means you're his target. I won't let that happen. She begged me to reconsider, but deep down she knew I was right. The law couldn't stop Anthony. The police couldn't stop him. Only I could. That evening, as the sun set, I placed a box on the porch. Inside was a note, written in my hand. Meet me at the old storage yard. Midnight. Alone. If you want what's yours, come and take it. It was bait. Dangerous bait. But I knew Anthony wouldn't resist. The storage yard was where George and I once kept extra furniture. It was isolated, surrounded by chain-link fences and rusted shipping containers. Nobody went there anymore. It was the perfect place to end this nightmare. At 11:30 p.m., I armed myself. Not just with the bat. This time, I had a can of pepper spray, a flashlight, and George's old revolver, the one he had kept locked away for years. My hands shook as I loaded it, but I knew I couldn't hesitate. Lisa clung to me at the door. "Mom, please don't go." I kissed her forehead. "I have to. For you." Then I stepped into the night. The drive to the storage yard felt like hours. The streets were empty, the silence pressing against my ears. My headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating only the cracked asphalt and weeds along the road. When I pulled up, the yard was deserted. The metal containers loomed like silent sentinels, their shadows long and eerie under the pale moonlight. I stepped out, clutching the flashlight and the revolver. My breath came in quick bursts. "Anthony!" I shouted into the night. My voice echoed off the steel walls. "I'm here. You wanted me? Come and get me." At first, nothing. Just silence. Then, a laugh. Low. Mocking. Coming from somewhere in the shadows. "You're braver than I thought, old woman." My blood turned cold. I spun with the flashlight, its beam cutting through the dark. Anthony stepped out from behind a container, his face twisted into a cruel smile. His hands were empty, but his confidence said otherwise. "You think you can stop me?" he sneered. "You couldn't stop George from betraying you. You couldn't stop me from taking what's mine. You're nothing but a bitter widow clinging to scraps." I raised the revolver. My hands steady despite the pounding of my heart. "Stay back, Anthony. I'm warning you." He chuckled and took a step closer. "You don't have the guts. You've lived your whole life in George's shadow. You're weak. Just like Lisa." His words cut deep, but they also fueled my rage. "Don't you dare say her name," I spat. In an instant he lunged. I squeezed the trigger. The gunshot shattered the night, echoing across the yard. Anthony stumbled, a cry ripping from his throat as he clutched his shoulder. But he didn't fall. Instead, he roared with fury and charged again. He slammed into me, knocking the revolver from my hand. We crashed to the ground, the air bursting from my lungs. His hands wrapped around my throat, squeezing. His face hovered above mine, eyes wild with madness. "You should have stayed quiet, Margaret. Now you'll die here alone." Spots danced before my eyes. My lungs screamed for air. My arms flailed, searching desperately for anything at all. My hand closed around the flashlight. With the last of my strength, I swung it upward, smashing it into his face. Anthony howled, loosening his grip just enough. I twisted free, scrambling for the revolver. My fingers found it, cold and heavy in the dirt. I rolled onto my back, raised it and fired again. This time the bullet struck true. Anthony's body jerked, his eyes wide with shock. He staggered, his mouth opening as if to speak. Then he collapsed onto the ground, motionless. For a long moment, I just lay there, gasping, staring at his still body. It was over. Or so I thought. Suddenly, I heard movement behind me. "Mom!" Lisa's voice cried out. I spun, my heart leaping into my throat. She was running toward me, tears streaming down her face. "I couldn't let you do this alone. I followed you." I opened my mouth to warn her. But then, Anthony's body twitched. With a guttural groan, he lifted his head, blood dripping down his chin. His eyes locked on Lisa. "No!" I screamed. He lunged toward her with his last ounce of strength. I raised the revolver, aimed and fired one final time. The shot echoed, and Anthony collapsed for good. This time, there was no getting up. Silence. Lisa dropped to her knees beside me, sobbing into my shoulder. "It's over, oh God, it's really over." I held her tightly, tears streaming down my own face. For the first time in months, I felt the weight lift from my chest. Anthony was gone. The nightmare was over. Hours later, the police swarmed the yard. Detective Harris put a hand on my shoulder, his expression grave but understanding. "You did what you had to, Margaret. He would never have stopped otherwise." I nodded, though my heart was heavy. Killing Anthony hadn't brought George back. It hadn't erased the betrayal or the pain, but it had saved Lisa. And that was enough. In the days that followed, life slowly began to heal. The house felt lighter without Anthony's shadow hanging over it. Lisa smiled again, truly smiled, for the first time in months. As for me, I learned something I will never forget. Family isn't just about blood. Sometimes blood betrays you. Sometimes it tries to destroy you. But true family, the kind worth fighting for, is the one you protect, the one you refuse to lose, no matter the cost. So to everyone listening to my story, remember this. Never let fear control you. Never let evil win. And most of all, never underestimate the strength inside you. Because sometimes survival depends not on who stands beside you, but on who you choose to stand for. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you don't miss my next upcoming stories. And please, tell me in the comments, what part of the country are you watching from? I would love to know.